medical evidence is the fuel that makes this motor run. The best lawyer in the world can't do much if he doesn't have evidence. And if you ask us, we'll tell you, here's the kind of evidence you're looking for. Here's what we could use from your doctor. Here are the right questions to ask so everything gets in the record. Medical evidence. I could give a half dozen other pieces of advice, but none of them's as good as that one. Evidence is the fuel that makes the motor run.
Well, hey, Jack, it's so great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. I know how precious your time is and how busy you are. And so I just wanted to tell you how grateful I am for two things. One, or multiple things, actually, more than two. One, I'm super grateful for the service you do to our firm and how you represent our clients. I'm grateful for all the advice that you've given me over the years, both legally and professionally. And then third, I'm really, really grateful for our friendship. So those are three things that I cherish. And I wanted you to know off the top how grateful I am. And so
thank you, Peter.
Yeah, I'm grateful for your time today. So what I was hoping to do with our time today was maybe introduce yourself to some of our current clients or maybe some potential clients that may sign up with our firm, and just tell them a little bit about yourself, who you are, your background, and then how you ended up here with Evans Disability, and maybe, start with some education stuff and, all that good stuff.
All right. Thanks a lot, Peter. That's a really gracious introduction. And I'm great. You know that I love the work that we do at our office. It's my beautiful wife tells me every week, I know you didn't go to law school to get rich, and it's good because that plan is working out perfect. There are much more important things. There's better ways to make money with a law degree, and that's always in the front of our mind when we're working on these cases. Right. And we want to help people. So I'm from Brockton, Massachusetts. I've been a lawyer. Come this fall, it'll be 29 years. And I went to Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine. I went to law school at night in Boston, and I was an assistant attorney general for a couple of years. And after that, I went into private practice. It wasn't long before I hung out my own shingle in in the city where I was born and raised. And I had I really liked the practice that I had. I liked being my own boss. It was a general practice law firm. I did a lot of criminal defense. I did a lot of construction litigation, and I represented a lot of guys in the building trades, which naturally you got to learn how to do this kind of work, but it wasn't my primary focus. So I had a nice mixed practice like that, and a lot of them were similar and overlapping injury issues. People who get hurt, people in medical trouble, people having trouble paying their bills, and so forth. And there's a little overlap with all the rest of the practice that I had. It's all people's real problems. That's the important part. In any case, that was my practice in my hometown in Boston. I had a nice little office on Cape Cod that I shared with some guys because it was a very busy courthouse down there. And that was my practice, and I was a very happy bachelor until I was 40 years old. And that's when I met my wife. She is from Portland, and that's how I ended up here. And so I was in my 40s when I arrived in Portland, and there was no way I was going to take another bar exam. So I got lucky. There used to be, and a lot of people will remember, a national firm called Binder and Binder. They were the #1 Social Security firm in the country. Hundreds of lawyers, literally, when I worked for them. And if you look far enough back, you'll find a Wall Street article about how Binder and Binder changed a Wall Street Journal article about how Binder changed the whole country's economy. And it's good work. They started doing work representing injured firefighters on Long Island back in the 70s. And that matched up with a lot of what I had done back home. So when I started doing disability work, it was full time. It was a real eye opener how many people need this help. And I had a very varied practice back home. Last 14 or 15 years, I've been here in Portland. It's been all disability work, and it's really been the most rewarding part of my practice. You know, like a lot of lawyers who handle these cases, we've got a big book of stories about the reasons people have been grateful to us for our services, said thank you, about how it's changed their lives. And I have to say that I'm grateful to them. This is what I'm put here to do. A couple months ago, we were at some sort of social thing at church, and someone asked my wife, or someone asked me how long I'd been a lawyer. And my wife jumped in and said, I think since the day he was born. And, that you got to be serious about it if you want to be good at it. It means something. And that's why I'm glad to be with your office.
How many, so just for clarification, you're here in Portland, Oregon, because there's back east, some folks might think Portland, Maine. But with your time with Bender and Bender, were you just in Oregon, or were you able to travel everywhere, or did you travel?
No, and that was the nice part about it. Before I moved to Oregon, I traveled a lot more outside the U.S. than in, and almost not at all in the West. And so they had a huge national organization, and then they had about a dozen lawyers on the road. So I was in Alaska, I was all over the Rocky Mountain states, Cody, Wyoming. I've put on cases in the Natural History Museum in Kenai, Alaska, in the Tribal Hall in Wolf Point, Montana, at the National Guard Armory in Cody, Wyoming. It was really a trip because I got to see a lot of not just the country, but what goes on in people's houses and how people get by during the day. It was really rewarding, and I flew. It was a trip. It was a lot of work. I flew about 90,000 miles a year, and I was putting on almost 400 cases every year.
Wow, 400 cases a year. That's quite a few. That is quite a few. How many years have you been doing Social Security disability law in total?
This year is 13, since 2010.
And how many hearings, and I know you don't keep count, but how many hearings would you estimate you've done?
3,500 would be short.
Okay.
4,000 might be a lot, but quite some number.
Somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 Social Security hearings.
That's right, yeah.
So let me ask you this. So you work for Evans Disability now, and you do some work for us, and one of the questions I have is maybe you can tell our folks, because we have attorneys in the firm that kind of do different things. So we have folks that just do, federal court work. We have folks that do kind of client communication stuff. What's your primary focus within the firm, and sort of what does that look like?
Hearings. That is to say, my basic background is as a trial lawyer, trying jury cases. And hearings are sort of a compressed version of that. You're trying a case, you get a set of evidence, you talk to your witnesses, you make a plan, and then you go and talk to the judge. We're getting witnesses ready, we're planning presentations, organizing evidence, and then when the time comes, we go to the courtroom with you and make sure that you're all set, you know what to expect. It's the best analogy might be sort of the surgeon at the end of a medical case. Everybody's getting everything ready. The whole team puts the patient together, and then it's time to go, and there's the trial lawyer. So that's what I do, hearings.
Let me ask you about, we have a mock hearing video that you were a big part of that we have on our website and our YouTube channel. Let me ask you this. What is your favorite part of the hearing itself? Like, is there a part that you find most rewarding as a Social Security disability attorney who represents people in their hearing?
I got a couple of answers to that. One is every hearing is the client's day in court. And the most important thing is that they be heard. And I understand it's intimidating. It's a new thing. People don't do it. There's a lot on the line. You're scared about making mistakes. Your lawyer should let you know that you're in good hands, let you know what to expect, and get you through it. So when I'm done with the end of my client's testimony, and I think there's a case in there and they have been heard, that's my favorite part. Close behind that is cross-examining doctors. I'm a trial lawyer. I like to cross-examine witnesses. They're the most difficult witnesses to cross-examine. A lot of them are. I won't tell you anything about cross-examining doctors. It's just enough to say that when I get a notice for a case and there's a medical expert in the case, that's my kind of case.
And what, in your experience, and I'm not asking you to quote national statistics or anything, but in your experience, how often is there a medical expert in your hearing? Percentage-wise, 10% of the hearings, 20, 30, 40, and you can give a range.
Less than 10. Less than 10. That's why I look forward to it so much. Now, since we're getting into the mechanics of it a little bit, we can request medical experts. We'll probably have a podcast episode on that and what they mean to a case, but I wish there were more of them. Some judges use them all the time and some judges don't.
And just for clarification purposes, it's a request to the judge, and it's not up to us.
No, not at all.
Medical expert. It's the judge's decision if there gets to be a medical expert or not.
That's right.
And I wish there were more in the Social Security hearings, but like you said, it's about 10, maybe 15% at most, I think.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, what is probably your least favorite part of the mechanics of a hearing or the hearing itself?
I can't think of anything I don't like about my job. And I know that sounds funny. I hate to lose.
Yeah.
Actually, I've arrived at something. Okay. We put on a lot of cases, people who've been denied in the past, people who've been represented by other firms. It happens very regularly when we're the second or third lawyers on a case that the story these people tell about the prep that they got or the representation they got, it's not enough to say it's inadequate. It kind of makes me see red, to tell you the truth, because this is serious business. And if you don't want to take it seriously, go do something else. That's the part that's what makes me upset in the file.
Yeah, that's it. That's a great point. One of the things that I think about in the mechanics of a hearing is every once in a while you get a really aggressive judge. And those give me when a judge is almost cross-examining a claimant as if you're in a criminal trial, which we can do a podcast in and of itself about the different styles of judges within the Social Security Administration. But when you get someone who's a judge who you have to be respectful to, that becomes very aggressive towards a claimant, is probably my number one pet peeve in a hearing. My most kind of thing I dislike the most about a hearing.
I get you.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Jack. I want to, and I've been asking this of everyone, including kind of my staff interviews as well. And is there one or two pieces of advice that you could give to a potential client watching this or our current clients? What might be the best way to win a Social Security case?
I think most lawyers would tell you, make sure you go to the doctor, tell them what's wrong, follow their advice, and ask questions. Medical evidence is the fuel that makes this motor run. The best lawyer in the world can't do much if he doesn't have evidence. Mm-hmm. And if you ask us, we'll tell you, here's the kind of evidence you're looking for. Here's what we could use from your doctor. Here are the right questions to ask so everything gets in the record. Medical evidence. I could give a half dozen other pieces of advice, but none of them's as good as that one. Evidence is the fuel that makes the motor run.
I agree. I think, and I have a whole other video about medical evidence. I think objective medical evidence as well is helpful if it's a physical case, and then obviously if it's a mental health case, testing, requesting the appropriate mental health type testing. And then part of the medical evidence is one of the things I talk about is if you can get if you can create a good relationship with your treatment provider, and have them fill out one of our specially designed questionnaires or get a doctor's letter that supports what you're saying as far as not being able to work. So I agree 100%. Medical. So yeah. Listen, Jack, thank you so much for your time today. I hope our clients will get a little bit of insight into who you are, your background, your passion, not just for the law in this area of law, but also our clients, and really mission focused. And so I'm grateful for that. And you and I have plans to do more podcasting together to cover some different subjects. So this won't be the last time folks hear from you. But again, thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure, Peter. Thank you very much.
All right.